Asif said this, what's your greatest achievement while in government, David?
I've been involved in a number of things that I'm very proud of. When I was on the Department of Tourism and Leisure, for example, Alan Bell was putting forward the new sporting and aqua leisure facilities. When Alan moved on, I was fortunate to be able, with Eddie Lowy, to carry on the good work and to see those through to conclusion at the National Sports Centre. The Villa Marina is another issue where it had been neglected for a long time. It was falling apart. It was held up by acro props along the colonnade. Unfortunately, the government and the corporation couldn't come to an agreement, so we had to compulsory purchase that. Now we have the Villa Marina, which even tonight I'll be going to see Sinead O'Connor. How good is that we're able to get, with promoters, get top acts over to the Isle of Man? So those things, and as I say, Pulrose, which had been forgotten, and I'm just sad that some of the older people who fought with me to get that done are no longer here, but those issues, I think, as much as anything.
Will Annika be updated?
Yeah, well, there's been work already in terms of the heating system at Annika in the past, and then they've done the kitchens and doors and things. So I don't know where it features on the corporation programme at the moment, but, it's an ongoing. One of the things that happened in the past was that it was either new build or refurbishment, and you have to have a combination of both because the properties do wear out. And in terms of government, the owning of property which they rent out is one of the best things they can be doing. Obviously, the property is owned by Douglas Corporation in the main and then local authorities around the island. But to have that in terms of long-term investment, it's probably one of the best things they can do.
You're chairman of the Social Affairs Policy Review Committee. Just what does that mean?
Well, it's the most important work I've done in the last period of time, without a doubt. And the Social Affairs Policy Review is one of 4 Tynwald scrutiny committees. And it scrutinises the work of the Department of Health and Social Care, Department of Education, Department of Home Affairs. And then we take on initiatives ourselves in terms of looking into particular subjects. And so we've made a mental health report. We're shortly to produce for debate in Tynwald a suicide on the Isle of Man report. We also have looked into had referred to us the situation about historic child abuse. That has been very traumatic, and I'm very sorry that I won't be in a position to conclude that work.
Did you think that particular case would ever come to light?
I don't know. The thing is, what we've tried to do for some people who previously felt they weren't being heard by the establishment was provide a listening ear. They've come in and they've spoken to us in confidence, in tears, and it's just 40 years since those events. Now, there's a live case going on, so I'm best not saying any more, but I hope that we've given them some assistance, that somebody does care, somebody does believe them.
Who's on the committee for the social?
I chair it, and together with me, we've got Martin Perkins, MHK, and Julie Edge, MHK. Obviously, when I go, there'll be a new chair.
Who's going to be the new chair?
I have no idea. That'll be up to Tynwald. Tynwald votes on these things. It may be in the future that one of the roles for LegCo is to chair these scrutiny committees for LegCo members. I think eventually it'll be that LegCo members aren't on departments. I think that will be the right thing in the future. Ideally, and I said this to Liz Vane in terms of Legislative Council.
That's Lord Lisvane.
Lord Lisvane, yes. When he came over, I suggested to him that a system which might be better on the Isle of Man for the Legislative Council was one where all members of the Legislative Council were elected on an all-island basis so that they look at the big issues. And then the House of Keys looks after smaller constituencies. Unfortunately, Lord Lisvane didn't agree with that. I would have loved to have been the first person to have stood in such an election, but there you are. Hopefully in time things will move on.
That's like in Jersey they have island-wide
exactly right.
Island-wide senators
That's
as well.
Exactly
so you
right.
think island-wide MLCs elected would
yes.
be a good idea?
I think so, yes. But obviously others don't.
There's been often talk about democratising LegCo. That's obviously something you feel strongly about.
Yes. Well, one of the reasons I was prepared to go to LegCo for one term only. I don't know whether I did the right thing or not now, but anyway, the reason, one of the reasons was that I had supported members of the House of Keys, was able to support members of the House of Keys in their attempts to make further changes to democracy in the Legislative Council. Also, I think with the last election, with the House of Keys now having to be more open about who they're voting for, is a good thing, because there's been so much mucking about in the past where people for weeks and weeks and weeks, it was ridiculous. And so now when the House of Keys in their wisdom elected the new female cohort of MLCs, I think they've done a very good job, in as much as we need all people from all walks of life to be there to represent our island.
Do you think LegCo will ever be publicly elected?
I'd love to think so. And I'd love to be one of the first to cast my vote in such an election.
David Cretney, MLC, is with us today on the Mannin line. Let's see. Do you think, and this will always come up, I'm going to ask you this because you've been in politics an awful long time. People often moan about gold-plated pensions, public sector gold-plated pensions. By definition, you will be in receipt of one of those. Does that cause you any disquiet?
This is the honest truth, and I always try to be honest. When I entered into the House of Keys, I didn't even think about whether I was going to receive a pension at the end of it. I knew I would receive a salary, and I knew what that salary would be. I had no thoughts about the pension. Yes, I will receive a pension. Yes, I will receive a good pension. I think the good thing is that lots of work has been done latterly in relation to not only members of Tynwald, but also in terms of public servants generally, to make sure that they are sustainable in the future. And I think that's the right thing that's happened. One thing I would say is that over the years, one of the things that was available, you not only got a tax-free allowance, but you also were able to charge for petrol. I never claimed a penny for petrol all the years I was there, because I felt that was part of the job. I felt I've got a car. If I need to go somewhere, I'll use my car. I don't want to claim additional because I'm getting paid for this job.
You've been a Douglas man all your life.
Yeah.
What state do you think Douglas itself is in?
Well,
you're a businessman, of course. You had 2 shops on Strand Street.
Yeah. If I was to look at Douglas at the moment, I walk down Strand Street with the dog quite often late at night. I think, and the corporation have done a great job in terms of the Christmas lights. I think they look fabulous. In terms of some other areas around Douglas, there's brownfield sites that for a long, long time have been ripe for redevelopment, but have not been attractive to developers because it's easier to develop on greenfield sites. I would love to see some of those brownfield sites, which will never be used for the purpose for which they were intended, redeveloped into accommodation.
Summerland, Castle Mona, Lord Street bus station, and the other half of the old RBSI building.
Yes.
They've been empty for years.
Yes, and there's been suggestions that things will happen, and sadly, some developments take a long time to come to fruition, but these have been long overdue.
And David, some can race up in 2 years, can't they?
Yeah.
So Lord Street, when did Lord Street bus station close?
It was when Dominic Delaney was the minister for local government, if that gives any clue, in the early 90s perhaps. And
over 20 years ago.
Yeah. Oh, well over 20 years. And Dominic, I remember Dominic having a leaflet which went out through the estate agents advertising the site for sale. And there've been several, since then, there've been several schemes supposed to happen, but they never have. I hope that the present one does.
Noble's Baths as well, at the bottom of Victoria Street as well. And the public must look at things like that, and certainly at the Summerland site as well, and just think, why is there no momentum behind that? Why is nobody taking the initiative? And often when governments say that, things are going to happen, there often has to be action. Let's go back to Paul Rose. It was an idea, you saw it, you put your weight behind it, and you made it happen.
Together with others, you always need to have a team. Whatever I've ever done, it has always been with the support of others. But yes, that's exactly what you need to do. We can talk and talk and talk about things forever. I mean, just look across the water at Brexit. Even those who were pro-Remain, and I was a pro-Remain, even with all the problems with the European Union, the corruption and all that, I thought it was we could resolve those issues. However, it wasn't going to happen. The public in the UK had a vote. They decided what they wanted to have happen, and that's why Boris Johnson has been elected. He's been elected because he said he will acknowledge what the people said. And it went on and on and on and made a real farce in Westminster. Now, the same applies here. We can talk and talk forever about things, but what we need to do is, there comes a time, stop talking and get on with the action.
Back to 1984 then. You came in 1985. How many out of work?
3,000 people out of work.
Seems astonishing now. We've got 250 out of work now.
Yeah, and out of a lower working population as well. And even then, work was seasonal. People would have jobs in the summer, no jobs in the winter. And so there were winter work schemes where people were given menial tasks to do. They would shovel holes and then fill holes in again. It is much better. The island is much better in terms of all year-round employment now than it ever was. And now the issue is whether there's enough skills. And what I want to make sure happens is that there are sufficient jobs available, good quality jobs available at good wages for Isle of Man people, and that there's sufficient training available for the Isle of Man people to take those jobs, rather than just importing all the time.
And that's the key, is making sure that Manx people are skilled up, as you say. So is the skills training available here?
Oh, yes, there is, absolutely. And again, when I was Minister of Industry, there was a suggestion that the support for the construction sector in terms of apprenticeship support from government would cease. I turned that round, worked with a number of people in the construction sector, such as Stuart Clegg and others. Stuart was always a very progressive man as far as I was concerned, and they told me what best suited the construction sector. We worked with them, we came up with a scheme, and now we're training young people to be able to take on those jobs, because you're always going to need a plumber, aren't you?
You have always had a fun side, David Cretney. You were known as the Minister of Fun for a long time. Did you like that title? Or
I invented the title, so I had to like it. Yeah, I was a minister for 18 years. I was a minister for tourism and leisure, or fun, for 10 years. Part of that job was obviously the TT. I'd ridden in the Manx Grand Prix. I rode in the Manx Grand Prix last time in 1998. And people around the world still contact me in relation to the years I did in that particular role.
You did 9 races, were you, in the MGP?
Something like. I can't remember exactly.
What was your quickest lap?
Oh, just over 100 miles an hour in 1998. And to put it into context, Jeff Duke was doing that 40 years previously. So I was always going to be an also-ran, but to have achieved my 100 mile an hour lap was very important to me.
What was the bike?
It was a bog standard 600 Honda. And it never missed a beat.
How did you feel going down Bray Hill?
Fabulous. Well, the civil servants, let me just tell you, the civil servants in the Department of Tourism, because I was Minister for Tourism then, were a little bit concerned at the potential negative PR implications of the minister going off on his bum at Quarterbridge. It didn't happen. All went very smoothly, and I'm still getting the odd pint out of people even today.
Who trained you on the bike and on the course?
Nobody trained you. You just
went.
Get on with it.
Who motivated you? Who said you could do it then?
Let me just go back to the training point. I got my first bike off Neil Kelly in Tiger Tim's by the sea terminal there. There was no pre-training then in terms of getting a bike. So I got the bike. It was a 500 Honda. Neil brought it down in the lift. I got on the bike. And I went out on the TT course, straight out, no lessons, no nothing. I had no idea about bikes, gears, clutch, anything. And I got as far as Belaf Bridge and the thing blew up because I hadn't changed gear properly. I had no idea. It's much, much better now. People have proper training like they should have. But motorcycles are potentially very dangerous, and so it's right that there should be proper training.
What was the scariest bit of the TT course for you? Any moments?
Oh, yeah, well, I fell off twice. I fell off at Governor's Bridge. because I'd had a bad start and I was trying to catch up. And so coming down the mountain, I was going quite quick, and then into Governor's Bridge, the back wheel was pattering. And then I fell over, and Bill Dale happened to be there to get a picture of me picking the bike up. Thank you very much, Bill Dale. The other time was at Ginger Hall. Again, I was trying to be overambitious in 1993. This was trying to be overambitious, trying to pass this young man who was in front of me, who was holding me up all the time. And I hit the pavement, and everything went all over the place. Biggest crash I ever had. And nobody was there with a camera. Where was Bill when you wanted him?
Any injuries?
No. Just superficial, nothing to worry about.
Let's go back to the TT. You were involved from, I'm trying to think, when till when?
1996 to 2006. So I missed out on the 2007, the centenary TT, because I was moved on. I regret that. But yes, during my time, Joey was obviously predominant, and I built links. I knighted Joey in the last year. He was on the Isle of Man at the Sumland stage. Lots of people remember that. So he became Sir Joey. I was then invited by people in Northern Ireland, along with the sports minister from the UK and the sports minister from Northern Ireland, to speak at Joey's funeral. I read a passage from the Bible. And then in 2003, David Jeffries, who was the top rider of the day, sadly lost his life. And it could have imploded. The whole thing could have finished because people were blaming each other. The road racing community were all blaming each other that this could never have happened to DJ because he was at the top of his game. We got through that with a number of changes, and fortunately after 2007, where people said that was going to be the end of the TT, it's gone from strength to strength, and I'm very pleased about that.
You're happy with the way the TT is at the moment?
Yes, generally, yes. I think you always have to keep up with the times. Some of the motorcycling community can say they want everything to stay the same. Nothing stays the same. It's comfortable for things to stay the same, but you need to kind of move on. You need to provide new things. In our time, we had the street parties on Douglas Promenade with Terry Toohey. Terry had come from Durban. That was his idea, but we worked together as a team, and they were very, very successful. I'd like to see more of that, but now all the action is around the grandstand. But other than that, I'm very happy.
You had a close relationship with Terry Toohey. Terry was a very able civil servant.
Absolutely.
You worked with many good civil servants over the years. Can you name any of the good ones that you worked with?
I think I'd be impolite, really, too, though, in case I miss anybody. But, we not only good civil servants, but there's a bit of a fashionable thing for new governments or new parliaments to say that everything that went before was useless and we're all good and we're going to do the best. You need to learn from history, and you need to look back in history, because some of the people I had the honour to serve in Tynwald with were some of the star names of Isle of Man politics. Big names. And so me coming in as a humble beginner, sitting alongside some of those people who'd been around for a long time and who had worked very hard to get the Isle of Man into a new place. We've constantly had to revise ourselves, find a new way of doing business on the Isle of Man, and they've been very successful in doing that. And so a number of good civil servants, a number of good politicians.
Big politicians then, when you came into Keys, who were the big names?
Well, Sir Charles Crush, Dr. Mann, Clifford Irving, Percy Ratcliffe, Ian Anderson, Victor Neal. I was on a Department of Education with Victor Neal, very fond of Victor, but Victor was somebody who wanted to do everything himself. And so the one time I resigned, and Edgar Quine, who was also on education with me at the time, was from the education department, because Victor was doing everything and we were just sitting there like dummies, really. So that's the one time. I'm not a resigner.
You've got a friend in Judy. After all the years David served the people of the Isle of Man, he deserves a good pension. Please wish him a long, healthy and happy retirement, says Judy. His standards and caring attitude is sadly missing in MHKs today. Hi, does your guest, says Tony, does your guest have any opinion on Freemasonry within politics? It seems not what you know, but who you know within government. This is all about Freemasonry. And again, this is something that comes up all the time, that you're all friends, it's all funny handshakes, and everything is sorted out between you.
Yeah. I was invited by the late Joseph Karma to become a Freemason. The lightning hypnotist. Great man, nice man, Joseph. However,
and
I
a very nice assistant.
Yes, but I declined his kind offer. I've never wished to be a Freemason. I have no problem with them. They go on and they do their own thing. But I've always been proud. Whatever I've achieved, it's been achieved without the assistance of others, other than obviously the electorate who've been so supportive. But I've got on and done things myself. In terms of, I think it has to be declared now. So people who are unhappy about that situation, all they've got to do is look in the members' interests, and they will see.
I think anybody who's in a fraternal order nowadays has to declare things. And of course, you've been a member of the Manx Labour Party for how long as well? So everybody's got to have a social life, I take it as well. And
I was never a buffalo there, which is the working class equivalent of the Masons. I've never been a Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes. I was never one of them.
You're a big fan of the Legion, though, as well, aren't you?
Yeah, well, yes, of course.
Still one of the finest places for a pint in Douglas. If a week is a long time in politics, why is 40 years not long enough to have a fair rating system, David?
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. All I would say is, when the Manx Labour Party was first in the early 1980s, mid-1980s, there was myself, Eddie Lowy, Bernie May, Peter Carron. We'd followed on from Arthur Quinney and Matty Ward. Sadly, over the years, I'm the last one. I'm the last member at the moment of the Manx Labour Party. I do hope that changes in the future, but you need to have people who work together, and that's why I would always argue that a policy-based decisions for the electorate, whether it's Conservative, Labour, Liberal, whatever it is, it should be decided on policies and a policy document, again with trust, rather than just, I know him or I know his father. And I got plenty of those. My father had a grocer's shop on the quay, and people would, and it closed in 1964. I stood in 1983, and people still remembered my father and said, Clifford was very kind to me. You've got my vote, son. I mean, and that's not how it should happen. The other thing was little old ladies, who I've got curly hair. Little old ladies would come up and stroke my hair and say, "You're a nice boy. You've got my vote." And sadly it should be around policies. Naturally, because we're a small island, there's going to be a little bit of, who and all that kind of stuff. But it should be based around policies, and it should be a group of people working to promote particular policies, whatever political background they come from.